hakkasan. We use an honorific in addressing the students. I was surprised that it's a very nice gesture. It elevates the student's status.
Yeah, very nice. And clearly he has a rapport, right? I think all of us have noticed. Not only was he animated and energetic and engaging with students, but he really had a connection with them. And I like the way, even if he's walking into school, and he's in a city in California called Salinas, California, which is south of San Francisco. And I was very proud to see that city. My grandmother lived in Salinas, so it's where my parents were born. So I'm glad to see that Salinas is doing well. And he really worked on the cultural theme as well. Did anybody see any grammar lectures or vocabulary practice there? Who's up? Daria? Did it look like a grammar lesson to you or something very different, Daria?
I don't think it was a grammar lesson, but I think it was a vocabulary lesson. But she presented some cards and then she presented some stuff. And actually this lesson, well, I like this lesson because it was really vivid. Lots of visual material was presented, and it was clear and explicit what students should elicit from all those things. So which words?
Yeah, so it was authentic material. It was delivered for a communicative purpose, right? He brought his realia. He engaged his students actively. He had them, and in the end, brings them back to this theme of the regions of Japan that they're going to write about and read about and learn about. It was probably some vocabulary development, even though it didn't look like very formal vocabulary practice or grammar practice. Both of those were clearly embedded in what he did. He brought his swimming trunks and what were those, boxer shorts and all of those items that he needs for Okinawa. In case you didn't get his name, I put it in the chat. His name is Yo Azama, and he was the actual teacher of the year. And when we talk about standards in the United States for the teaching of modern languages, we have a number of different places we could go. But one of the most famous organizations is known as ACTFL, the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Languages. It probably focuses a bit more on K through 12 than the college and university area. But they've given us some very interesting standards and ideas for thinking about language and culture teaching. So, for example, I put up on the screen one of the examples of an actual standard that's used widely in K through 12 teaching for presentational or interpretive communication. We have to bring culture and cultural competence to our classrooms. And Svetlana mentioned that. We all, as language teachers, prize that so heavily. We need to make connections, right? We need to connect with other disciplines, bring in other information. So what was he bringing in? He was bringing in maps and geography and a little bit of history maybe, really helping students use that language in a cultural context to make connections. A good classroom asks students, if you work with the actual standard, to make comparisons and think about how a culture that you are studying or learning about differs from a culture that you may have grown up in. And it asks you to think about communities, right? I thought it was really interesting that the students were gathered out in front of the school and he walks up to them and he addresses them in Japanese. He probably also encourages them to be part of the local Japanese community in California. So it was a very rich classroom as you look at the actual standards And there are a wide variety of standards out there. Axel is most famous, I should put it up before I pass the mic on, for what are known as the ACTFL OPI standards, or oral proficiency standards. It's one of the national standards for oral skills and spoken skills, and actually all language and culture skills in the United States. Professor Marson, I think, was going to put into the chat, if you have not visited the ACTFL website, I believe it's actfl.org. It's a wonderful resource for teaching and learning and thinking about language and culture teaching.
I want to say one thing to kind of emphasize how unique these standards are. 10 or 15 years, these are relatively new. 10 or 15 years ago, the standards were not defined in terms of communication, culture, connection, that sort of thing, but rather they were defined in terms of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Kind of the very fundamental language skills, and those. The fact that those are no longer the standards reflects that we have moved way beyond the grammar and translation approach to teaching language, which was the norm in the United States as recently as 10 or 15 years ago. And we're now moving way beyond that.
One thing I would point out before we leave this is I was very impressed that he conducted the entire lesson in Japanese. We all know, we all strive for that standard, but frequently in the United States, if you go into a language classroom, now I think they said this was level 3 or level 4, frequently you hear a mix of the target language and English. It's not always the case that we tend to conduct our classrooms in the target language. I was quite impressed that he did that with high school students in particular. Very, very impressive. I'm going to pass the microphone over to Professors Luro and Harrison and let them just talk a little bit or share a little bit about teaching Russian in the United States and some of the materials we have and use here.
Well, I'm kind of continuing the point I just made, and that is that the approach in textbooks these days is also a communicative approach. And more than that, textbooks are accompanied by kind of a rich variety of online resources. More and more textbooks come with packages that include exercises and videos and recorded materials available online. Every once in a while, there's not one at the present time, but a couple of years ago, we worked with a textbook that also had an online version of the textbook. There are only 3 or 4 in wide use in the United States. Galasa is one. Galasa, which is it comes as a 2-year program. This is a basic textbook. The one from UT, the ACTR book, whose name I can't remember. Lonnie, maybe you can help me.
No, I'm not sure I know it.
Nick, what were you using at UT, Nick?
Well, that's what they use at UT.
Oh, that's Russia, but then UTSA has Troika, which is also part of that's without.
Yeah. Well, I use Troika myself now, and I think it's probably the best of the books on the market. The problem with textbooks these days is that the Russian language is changing so quickly, and Russian life and culture is changing so quickly that these things become very quickly obsolete. Troika was published 2 or 3 years ago, the second edition of it. Second edition, and it's done by a woman in San Antonio, Marita Numakovsky, and it's a first-rate book. Professor Harrison?
I would add that there's a book we use for a more intermediate level for sometimes second, but mostly third and fourth year students. So that one here. And I really like it. It's a little faster paced. It's pretty dense with material. It's quite grammar oriented, but they also have a lot of culture as well. Toward the end of every chapter, they always introduce one of the famous cultural figures. I was just flipping through, and I saw a short biography of Akhmatova and some some poems by Akhmatova, etc. So a book like that is also very useful. And of course, we always supplement it with additional culture material, realia, etc.
For advanced courses, I have used Boutique, and I also use this, Making Progress in Russian, by Davis and Apprentice, and it's a very grammar-oriented book. Happily, they published a supplement a couple of years ago that punches it up a little bit. But this is my go-to source for obscure grammar questions.
Great. And if I could mention one more that's culturally oriented, with quite a different approach. Here's a link. I just quickly, I could only pull up the Amazon link. I'm not promoting the sale of this particular book, but I like it because it presents Russian words, concepts, cultural concepts, as well as swaths of text, which are from a whole range of topics, from history, geography, politics, arts and literature, etc. And almost every word or terminology that's used is also in an audio file. So you can listen to everything. And it's a large book. It's a good several hundred pages. And so it takes a different approach from the standard grammar textbook. Actually, the book is presented in English, but it's loaded with cultural information that you would have to spend several years in Russia to absorb all of the content it gives. So I like that one too. I usually use it as a supplement for one of our other language classes.
Lonnie, could you write the name of that textbook in the chat?
Yeah, the Russian context. I put a link right there.
Oh, good.
The Russian context.
Nick, would you like to add to this? To this?
With my students is Russian World, Life, Language, and Culture, and it's from the same publisher that is the one that Lonnie was talking about, the Russian Context.
And same author, too.
Gerhardt, yeah. And she updates it. I think a new edition just came out last year, if not this year. So she updates it pretty regularly, and it includes, she's gone from CDs to DVDs, so I think there's some online content coming from what I've heard. So it really does a good job of connecting the language to the culture, which is something that, we always preach you can't disconnect. So.
Yeah, that's a solid resource, and by Ginevra Gerhardt.
One of the textbooks that all three of our speakers just mentioned was Troika by Dr. Nemikovsky. When Troika first came out in 1995, possibly, Joe? 96?
I think so.
And in fact, Nick, you would be pleased to know that Marita actually wrote this textbook while she was a doctoral student at UT, as we were all in the program, Joe and I, Marita, together. It was a little bit ahead of its time because it took a fair amount of that grammar practice out of the classroom and asked students to practice on their own, to work on their own, to do some of that terrible, what we would call drill and kill, on their own and free up class time for more significant, more communicative, more cultural sorts of activities. And that's the basic concept behind another phrase you will hear quite a bit that's known as the flipped classroom, that we begin to think about how we prize our time in the classroom with students, and are we using it for the most creative, most communicative, most cultural sorts of activities. And with that, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Professor Marston, who's going to talk a little bit about the flipped classroom. This is a hot topic. If you go to a conference in the United States with any sort of pedagogical theme, you're going to hear talk after talk about the flipped classroom. So, Professor Marston, you're right in the hip trend these days.
And can you please pass me the ball so I can upload this?
It is coming right now to you.
Thank you.
Voila, as they say in French.
Yes. I knew it was something like that.
For those of you who do not know, Professor Marston is actually a French language history and culture faculty member and joins us to bring French culture to us and to absorb Russian culture from the process.
Should be uploading now. Wait for it. So I have to write things down and go home and study by themselves. And the main idea is to make better use of the knowledge of the teacher by making a recording, say, of that lecture and assigning it as homework outside of class, so that you don't have one mind working and 30 minds sitting there nodding off. And so it's a way to bring more active participation into the classroom so that students can work on applying the knowledge that they have begun to explore in class. So the first thing is get the lecture outside the class. One of the things we're able to do in a flipped classroom then would be to allow for differentiation. And there's a resource that I put on the bibliography about that. That if you have students at different levels of knowledge and intelligence, you can let them have the same basic preparation outside of class, and then they can work in groups in the class. And you will see there are 3 YouTube resources that Professor Smith was good enough to share with me. And those tell about teachers. They're short to tell students, to tell their experience with this kind of performance, and being able to let the brighter students work by themselves and do individual projects that stretch their knowledge rather than have them go, I've heard this all before. So,
Professor Marston, if maybe this might help, Svetlana. Please try to imagine the Japanese lesson going this way. Instead of pulling the items out of the bag, the professor would stand in front of the students and say, today we're going to learn words that might be important to a traveler. And then on the chalkboard, on the whiteboard, he would write these words: camera, passport, ticket, map, whatever. So, and then he would say, okay, everybody repeat these words. And they would all say, camera, pasaporto, and whatever, and go on. And then he would say, your assignment for next time is is to memorize all of
Learn these words.
Learn these words. And now for the next topic. And that's a traditional way of presenting the same material. Well, the result is the same, but is that the best use of the time? Probably not. Probably not. That's the traditional way of approaching that task.
Yes, I think that does help. Do you have other questions? And is this something that you think would be useful for you in your classroom?
Well, I think I need to have a closer look at it because to really understand how it works. I mean, how I can use it. Of course, it is interesting. Each and every method, I'm interested in that. So I'll probably use the link. Will we be able to use the link? I mean, I cannot.
Yes, you will.
In the presentation. Yeah.
It's on Webelang right now.
And all the links work. And I rechecked them before I went to bed last night, so they should all be good. And you said the magic word, Svetlana, because you said, I think I need to take a closer look. And that was my goal, because I can't really tell you very much about it in the time that we have, because we're very anxious to hear what you as students have to say about this, about your work. And so I'm going to take just a couple more minutes to tell you about the other topic, which I'm really much more confident about because this has been a specialty of mine for several years, and that's electronic portfolios of qualitative assessment. And part of the reason that I started developing this early in my career is I don't test well. I hate tests. And especially I find it frustrating for language students, both for me as usually the assessor and the student as the assessee, because they have a big test, and that test measures, okay, I know you've been all preparing for tests, and so what the traditional testing does is measure a student's ability at one time. So here at the end of the semester, when you're all tired and overworked and rushing to make goals, I'm assuming that applies to you because you, even though you're all very good students, you are students, and that's the way a student has to do it. So you get everything is measured at one time, and usually the assessment is done by the teacher, and the teacher may not tell the student the basis for the evaluation, and the student may not be able to say, well, you know, this was really hard for me at first, but now I can do it better, and I really think I've made progress this semester. It's very difficult, especially for language students, to see the improvement that we're able to see, and that's another reason why we'd like to get away from the one big test. It's usually conducted, a big test is not a learning experience, and the students get a grade, but particularly at the end of the semester, you may never get any feedback from the teacher, and it's not going to tell you everything about what a teacher does. Even if you are a language teacher and you are testing, speaking, writing, listening, and reading, which a current test might do. Where is the cultural context? That's very difficult to tell. And it doesn't include how well the teacher may appreciate you as a learner. and the student is left out of the whole process. So in a portfolio, it measures students' ability over time, and both the teacher and the student do something to participate in that evaluation process. It's a part of the instruction, and it gets many different kinds of language learning performance. It allows for the student to hear from the teacher what they think that the student does well, and the student isn't a passive participant, not an object being worked on. So for us, a complete portfolio would include paired artifacts to show progress over time. This is just one model. There are very many. A benchmark audio or video recording early in the semester paired with an audio or video recording at semester's end. This is so helpful for students, and it's so hard to get people to make that initial recording because all the students want to say, oh, I don't know, I can't say anything, or, my accent's so bad, I just don't know what I'm going to do. And so part of the effort is to get, no matter where you are, a record of what that is, and then benchmark writing samples, analysis of cultural phenomena. There are other things to consider, but those are just some key ones. I put this up here not that I expected you to be able to read it, but because I would like for you to be able to refer back to it. The faculty may access recorded speaking artifacts using rubrics. And so this tells the rubric the basis for the grade and what kind of a grade that they're going to get, an A, a B, a C, a D, and a place for the professor to write comments. Now, I don't know if you have a tradition in Russia of having rubrics or not, and I really would like to know that. So, can you tell me, Yulia, do you know about rubrics? Do you have any concept of that?
I have a very bad copy and I don't see anything on my screen, on the screen of my computer.
Oh, that's very discouraging. Okay, well, do you know what a rubric is?
Well, yeah, I do. Well, again, I'm cutting in. Right. So that's what we use to assess writing and speaking, similar things, so a scale, where there's a description, a detailed description, how to assess students' ability. And we refer to it while we are assessing. This is what it is? Huh?
Does the student have a copy of that? Does the student have the rubric? Uh-oh. Can you hear me? So I may have lost my voice.
Your audio is cutting in and out.
Okay, I'm really sorry to hear that.
Dadia, I think Dadia put a good phrase in the chat. Dadia, have you worked with rubrics before?
Of course I did with my class. In my class I used that because every time when you get a new field, you need some Well, especially if that's a broad thing. Well, I use some details,
Guidelines.
some definitions, guidelines,
Yeah.
yes, or wide explanations for what my students do. So those are kind of rubrics, and well, they are constructed on something.
And you put the good Russian word "пояснение" in the chat. Very nice.
So it could be пояснение, or it could be some title, or some short article, or some short analysis of paragraph with some direction.
Okay, that sounds good.
Professor Marston, we might give you about 2 more minutes, and then we'll start scanning the students, as you said.
Yes. Okay, I have just 1 or 2 more slides here. This is an example, again, Professor Shestakov, and this is several years old, but I loved it. And his students who were interacting with our students in the virtual language studies made videos on their phones doing a tour of Omsk. And you can see the students here doing that. And that would be an excellent e-portfolio suggestion. And a really important part of this is students self-assessing. And they write reflectively about each e-portfolio artifact, and that is, here's some sample questions. And we collected those in the virtual language studies. We collected those in their blog, and students made artifacts and reflected on their work across the semester. And we really like them because e-portfolios do complement traditional testing and encourage learner ownership of the progress. And I would have made their grades about 80% based on the portfolio, but the traditional administrators in my school wanted to have some kind of testing. So we had mainly oral testing and some written testing to balance out what they did in their workshop. And this was, and you may be able to look at it later, this is one of our students making a blog project, and this was a first semester Russian student, or second semester, I can't remember which, and she analyzed the video and wrote what she got out of it, and that was one of her artifacts. And this should look familiar to Professor Smith. This was his model to explain how you might make connections on a scene and tie all these people together. And I haven't heard about our boy Yashin in a while, but I assume he's still doing his thing.
Oh yeah.
And this for a lot of our students, when Professor Smith first put this together several years ago, the idea of tying all these different media together to give a big cultural experience was really exciting to the students, and they enjoyed working with it because it pushed them to their limits. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about this, Pete? I didn't warn you I was going to do this.
No, but I think it also underscores how reading, so Professor Lero talked about the 4 skills, reading, speaking, see if I can do this, listening and writing, how those skills themselves have changed and how we read differently and in more connected ways on the web or in electronics than we have in the past. And that's exciting for all of us, right? That how we read has changed in our native language and in our second and third languages. And I think this little diagram tried to give that sense for it.
And learning is dynamic, and doing this kind of thing makes it's a learning experience for all of us. And we tried to get the students to look at the resources in ways that they hadn't done before. And we tried to model how to do that and foster integrative thinking. And
I do want to say that this is not an easy transition.
Yes, we're still working on it. Right?
We're still working on it. It takes some effort to shift from a traditional approach. But my experience has been that it's indeed worth the effort, and the greatest benefit is not to the teachers but to the students, and that of course is the whole point.
So I'm going to pass the baton back to you, Professor Smith, and let us hear from students.
We asked all of you to come prepared to talk just a few minutes either about a classroom you are teaching in now or a classroom you might teach in the future, and to talk a little bit about your classroom and some of the challenges you have faced and some of the solutions you have found. And I'm thinking, Daria, was it you who mentioned your young students? Was that you, Daria?
No, that was...
It was Yulia.
Yulia, start us off. Tell us about your classroom and your students, and a little bit about challenges you might have in your classes.
Well, as I've already said, I'm a teacher in a general secondary school, and I teach English to students, to pupils of second, third, fourth, and the fifth form. So they're small children. And truly to say, I have not a big experience with them while I worked at school only for 3 or 4 months. And earlier I worked in another town, another city, at the university. And my career there lasted for almost 6 years. And this period is much longer. And during this period I had different experience. So, and I think that I have no great failures maybe or difficulties because I had the opportunity to ask for advice of my colleagues, and but I would like to say about one interesting moment, about one interesting experience that I had. It was a young guy, and when he entered the university, he was very shy, and he had a limited vocabulary, grammar, and he preferred to keep silence and not to speak on the lessons. And but I should teach him, and one of my aims was to teach him to speak English while it was his future profession. And I tried to encourage him to speak, and at first I tried not to notice some of his mistakes or errors, and that helped him to not to be shy and not to keep him silent. And also one of my colleagues advised me to send him or to stay him to go to the student theater club at our university,
And this helped him to be more successful and to understand that he may do something very good and he may be successful in learning and studying and in different activities.
Very nice. What a wonderful example of a challenge, that shy, silent student, that you have to think of ways to reach that student and engage that student, we would say, or bring him to be more communicative. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just move up the list. Svetlana, can you talk a little bit about your classroom or a classroom you've had or will have? Thank you, Yulia. Very nice.
Hello again. Right. I thought we were supposed to talk about one of our failures and one of the things in our teachers' careers that we can be proud of.
Yes.
Well, I don't enjoy talking about failures. Right. I would like to share with you information about the project that we were doing with my students outside classrooms. I have some very bright students in my class, which are not which want to go beyond the curriculum and learn more about English, Australian, American culture, and be more proficient in language, learn more words. And what we decided to do is to organize, as Julia mentioned previously, our drama club. And the last project was we decided to learn words that from courtroom vocabulary. So we staged mock trial. So we found out what mock trials were, found some of the scripts, adapted one of them, which was very funny. It is called Deep Bad Wolf versus Toilet Pig. You have probably heard of it. It can be found on the internet. But we have adapted it to our level, rewrote the script, and this way we learned lots of new words. We acted it out not only for our school, but also they were representatives from other schools who watched our performance. So it turned out a big event for all of us.
And who wins in the mock trial? B.B. Wolf?
Oh, of course, it was not B.B. Wolf. We also introduced what was new about it. We introduced some music. It was musical. So we did very emotional, right? And we created scenery, and it was fun. It was actually fun. And the parents watched it, and they made a video of it. So that's a good thing to remember when they grow up, right? They enjoyed it very much. And that's what I wanted to share with you. I guess I've all taken already lots of time.
No, very nice. Good example. A very, very good example.
Mm-hmm.
Raitan, are you with us? Oh, thank you, Svetlana. Thank you. Excellent example. Raitan, are you with us? I have not heard from her this morning. Aliesa, did you bring a short report this morning for us?
Well, I'm afraid that I have nothing to tell about the experience of language, language teaching, because I as I have said before, I'm not an English teacher. I just do not know what to say.
All right. Well, good. Thank you. Hopefully, you're getting lots of good ideas today, and thinking and hearing ideas from your other colleagues. Maria, are you with us? Maria.
I haven't such a bright example as Svetlana and Yulia, but I very like to work in groups with my students, and I think cooperative learning groups embrace these elements, such as positive interdependence, individual accountability groups, assessing social skills and face-to-face interaction. And when I work with my pupils, I prefer to use some techniques such as team member techniques. Maybe anybody knows about it.
Yeah, group works or having groups. What would be a task you might give a group? What activity could you give a group?
What activity?
Yeah, for a group in particular. What's a good activity for a small group?
In small group, we discuss some topics
and then come back and report out to the class, maybe.
What?
So maybe they discuss something in small group and then they come back and report or discuss to the class?
Yes, my students in the end of our lessons every time to present what they do during the lesson. Maybe some speech about some things.
I will tell you in the U.S., not just in language classes, we always do group work, right? For language teachers, group work is very familiar to us. Across all the universities, so here at the University of Texas, we're trying to put more group work into every class, into political science, into history, into English at the lower division. And it's difficult because we as faculty members aren't prepared in many ways to do that. Although language teachers are, I think we're in a particularly good location. Thank you. Good topic. I'm glad you brought up group work. I'm glad you brought up cooperative learning. Tammy, are you with us? Go ahead. Right on.
Well, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, as for teaching, I have been working as a teacher for 20 years. And I think I'm sure that 20 years period proves that my choice is right. And I work in the university. I like my students very much. My everyday task, is to plan our lessons such a way that to choose interesting tasks which take short time and must be understood by students according to student studied grammar material. Well, but the universities in Russia every 5 years go through accreditation, licensing, and attestation, and one of the requirements to do tests on different subjects. Of course, during our lessons, I try to pay attention to speaking aspect, but most time we do these tests, and because we must practice all students. Well, as for my students, there are some stars. Unfortunately, there are some students with lowest level, and this uneven level of knowledge is give some problems to plan my lessons.
And that's another very important theme for all of us as teachers. Person used the word differentiation. Hard for me to type and speak at the same time. And that's a real challenge, isn't it, Raisa? You have to work very hard when you have students of different levels in the same classroom, right?
Yes, there are groups with different levels of knowledge require individual approach for students during our lessons.
Very nice. Good. I'm glad you brought that up as well. All themes that are very important to us as teachers and language teachers. We are running out of time, but let's talk to just a few more people. Ksenia, have we heard from you this morning?
Okay. I have not so big experience. I work at a secondary school 40 years. Now I practice at the gymnasium school with in-depth learning English. When I studied at the university, I did not want to meet. I had not practiced at school during study. We could practice at school and also at some companies in the role of interpreter. I translate various documents, meet with representatives of the USA. Then after graduating from the university, it was very hard to find a job without experience. And I was invited to work at school, and I agreed. At first, I found it hard to deal with tough teachers. I always visited lessons out of teachers and studied from them. Many teachers were older than me. They spent very interesting lessons, but they had a problem with the use of innovative technologies. The school is equipped with interactive whiteboards, and it was hard to get used to these whiteboards because they are used to work their own methods. It was not a problem for me. I began to learn all these methods and the application of these technologies very quickly. And then children became interested in learning English, go applying to studies of language. And also my mistakes were included the following. At the beginning of the lesson, it is necessary to find goals, objectives, and what we should do today. I did not always comply with the rules, considering that it is not the most important thing. And I got rebuked for it. My goal was to motivate children learning English. Of course, the main interest goes through culture of the country of the learned languages. Every of these directly related to the culture and history. It is always interesting for pupils how people live in the USA, what surrounds them, and that's it. English lessons were held 3 times a week. Some of the pupils wanted to learn the language more deeply and went to additional lessons. But nowadays, the modern generation is very mobile. In general, from childhood, everyone has already computer, so it is impossible to go without innovative technologies in the classroom. Pupils want to get emotion, admiration, amazement, and that's all. Otherwise, if they are bored, then they have no interest and motivation in learning almost any subject. Also, I like the use the method group discussion. It is a very effective way to present a common experience to engage the group in a discussion and have to understand its results when learners discuss the meaning of events with each other. But to be successful group needs a common experience to draw them into participation, establish a personal connect with the content, and provide a fair reference from which to
exemplifies their ideas.
Very nice. I'm very glad you mentioned the technology theme, right? All of us as teachers have these wonderful issues, the same issues, large groups, active learning, group work, silent students, technology. How do we bring technology into the classroom? Very nice. Thank you. Katya, are you with us? Do you have a short report to help us with this morning?
I used to be a German teacher, and I'm an English teacher only less than 1 year. And I used to teach at the university, and now I should teach teenagers and kids. And as I started to work, I had three challenges. First, new age group, and the second, English language, teaching English language, not German. But thanks to the teacher that helped me and to internet materials that I researched. My greatest experience at this place of work is that it was this summer, and it was like a summer camp for children, and I had 5 students. They were 7, 8, 9, and 10 years old. So I tried to work with kids, and it was the next challenge for me, and I was forced to be with them 6 hours a day, and we should speak English and make something interesting. And use technologies. We traveled around all the world. We were online, of course, in London and in New York, and so on and so forth.
Very nice. And so you had all sorts of challenges around different age groups and different language, and 6 hours a day. What a large time to fill, right? Very nice. And then lastly, Daria, do you want to tell us just a few bits? Thank you, Katya. Great examples, wonderful topic. Those different age groups are always challenging. You train with one, you get experience with one, and then you find yourself in front of an age group that's totally different. Very nice. Daria, a few words.
Well, I'm a teacher in a gymnasium, and actually I have 5 or 6 lessons every day. I've been working for 2 years already, so this is my 2nd year. And I have different age groups of students also, and they differ from the 2nd grade to the 6th grade. So I get lots of experience every day with them. During last year, we got lots of additional exercises, additional reading, and home reading, and we were trained on the different developments for various activities such as vocabulary, grammar, phonetics, pronunciation, speaking, and so on. It was fun to work with me as a teacher. And actually, my children took part in different competitions, and my very brilliant German voice reader or recite Shakespeare on stage. It's just great, and I'm proud of some of them. Well, actually, almost all of them, because really reflect things, and they get lots of stuff. So they can improve their English. For example, better distinguish with the students in other schools of the same grade. So You know, last year I had one student. She took part in a competition, and he actually won the competition, and he became the first winner in Russia. Well, he took the first place in Russia.
And
So it was
what kind of competition was it again?
That was called British Pedagogical.
Ah, very nice.
It was competition in English, and different aspects were included as well, such as grammar, vocabulary, and so on. So he wrote the written work and some listening, and actually he took the first place, and I was so happy and so proud of him. And so it was part of my job, part of his job. So I was eager to succeed that time.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you all. We've run a little bit late today, but we wanted to make sure everybody talked and that we got, a wonderful chance to cover all of our themes. Professor Lero or Marston, would you like to say any last words before we call it a wrap for the semester?
None except to thank the students and thank all of you for your participation during the past 15 or 16 or 17 weeks. It seems like it's been a while. As I look back over the semester and see the material we've covered, I think we've come a long way. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you, and I'm certain that our paths will cross sometime again in the future. Godspeed to all of you, and good luck.
And Professor Marston?
I just want to add my own pleasure at having such a wonderful group of students to work with. This has really been fun and interesting for me all semester, and I wish you well in your coming work.
And I will add that we've enjoyed being a community of teachers with you, and today's session really has driven home for me how we all face the same problems and the same challenges, and all of you as students at the Pedagogical College are learning and growing, as are we as teachers. So it's been delightful to work with you this semester, and we hope to stay in contact and to talk to you all in the future. So thank you for a wonderful semester. Thank you all again.
And I just wanted to say, if I may, just a few final words, that some of the lessons that I've covered with you inspired some of my lessons at school. And tomorrow, my the students of the 9th form are going to present, are doing their project on America and different aspects of America. So thank you. It was very inspiring.
Well, thank you. That's the best feedback we can get. Thank you for letting us know that all of our discussions had an impact. It's wonderful. And let us know how your students' presentations go, Svetlana.
I will. Thank you.
Well, thank you all, and best wishes for the holidays to come. And as I said, we hope to stay in touch and talk to you all at some point in the future.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, our guests, Lonnie and Nick. It was great to see you.
Yes, I want to say thank you to Lonnie and Nick. Yes.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you very much.